along with me is Mark Stepp. He's our CIO and the architect of our patented workflow system. So there is a lot to learn. It does a lot of cool things. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I'd like to share some cool stuff. We're finally getting to a place to be able to get back to innovation after we stabilized. And give me one moment. I need to make myself the presenter here. Okay. Some cool stuff that we're going to be doing. We are going to be redesigning the dashboard. So this, if everyone can see my screen, this is just a very basic mock-up, but we're going to get to a place of having a true dashboard. It shows a pipeline summary, your lead summary, the calendar, things that you have to do today on appointments, calls, emails, etc. And we're really going to try and get innovative here and not only show what you would expect so you can actually see your business, but we want to get innovative and be able to do some predictive analysis so you can quantify how many contacts you need to do X amount of transactions, how many times you need to contact them. And we're going to also be moving forward having a lot more of these calls. We're going to plan on doing them every, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks is when we'll have some. And as you guys get better and better at using Revolve and are learning along, we're going to be featuring some Revolve users and how they're using it. So we have a lot of things coming up that's going to be exciting. So I'm going to turn back over to Mark. Give me one moment, everybody. And today we are going to be talking about workflows. We're going to go over some basics. There's so many things that you can do. One of the things that we are learning is it's easy to get stuck, it's easy to get overwhelmed, but this is the place to where you organize and automate your work. It does a lot of very cool stuff. So Mark, I am going to turn it over to you. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to be on standby to answer questions as they come up. So
okay.
Thank you everybody. We'll be back soon.
And you do see my screen? Is that correct?
Yes.
Sure that. Okay, first off. Wow, workflows are fun, and they're also a little bit of work, and I want to explain exactly what a workflow is before we really get started. A lot of people get hung up on what a workflow is, and what I want to share with you is basically that they're very similar to action plans. A lot of you guys use Top Producer, Agent Office, Advantage XI, a lot of the different CRMs that are out there that use action plans. And an action plan basically starts from something that has to do with maybe a listing contract or a closing process of some sort. And you've got a series of things from A to G in this case, and all the miscellaneous items that happen in between, from the time you sign the listing all the way to the contract day and all the things, taking photos, doing all the mundane tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis. You can set up an action plan to do that. And action plans are good because they do help keep you organized. But workflows are a little different. Now, you can do the same type of thing. You can go from A to G and make a linear format of your workflow. That's very simple. How it's different, however, is with a workflow, you can have your starting element where you sign the listing agreement. And it starts going through the process, but as all of you know, whenever you do a listing or you go through a contract, things pop up. Things happen that are sometimes unexpected to the buyer or the seller, but you as professionals know things will happen. And we know that because you guys have letters that currently go out right now, like the 100 things that can go wrong with my listing, or all the rough seas letters that I've seen, the turbulence letters that I've seen. Those are things that are going to happen, and we know they're going to happen. So with a workflow, we can anticipate those, and we can set up to do things to get us through those activities. So sometimes you might go through a listing agreement, you come to some point B, and you've got two possibilities. You've got the normal possibility, and you've got an alternate possibility. Something maybe the buyer didn't have all of his information disclosed to the lender. Maybe the title didn't come in quite right. all the different things that can happen. You might have an alternate, what I call an alternate reality. So with a workflow, you can adjust and go to different realities by taking different paths. And you're not limited to just one or two paths. You can have as many different paths as possible. So you might go for a few other activities that happen, and then you run across a situation where other possibilities could crop up, and then you go through. Ultimately, you get to the same destination. From an activity that took you linearly through the process from A to G, you still get through that process. But with a workflow, you have alternate realities, alternate possibilities for being able to get through those. And you can set those up ahead of time to be able to work through them. So let me take you through just a quick sample of what a workflow does. Here I'm on a property. Say we just listed this property, and we can start a workflow. Now I'm going to use one here called building blocks, and we're going to use this as an example in a second, but I want to show you how to start a workflow so you know kind of what it's doing whenever we go back to actually look at the building blocks. So we're starting a workflow, and we click on Next. The very first thing that it does is it checks to see what are the things that are in this workflow. What are the different activities? Now you could have one activity, you could have 20, you could have 100 different activities in here. Most of them will all be set up under the general group. You might have some in this list that are set up where if the property has septic and you want to do different things based off of there are septics out there, you can simply uncheck the checkbox and it would remove any activities that deal with septic from your list if you don't have a septic system. It's hooked into the main system. So you can have other groups of activities. This just allows you to exclude certain elements of your workflow based off of the need. There are certain times when you need extra things and sometimes you don't. But you can set up these as checkboxes to remove them. Now, you could set up two different workflows. You could set up a workflow for septic and a workflow for non-septic. That is a valid possibility, but this makes it much easier. You're dealing with one workflow. I'm just going to click on Next. And then the next thing that it does is it goes through and says, okay, based off of this workflow, there are certain milestone dates that you've told us that you want to have in here. And based off of the information that's in the database, it'll go ahead and fill in these dates. If you have other milestone information fields that you don't have filled in, you'll have the opportunity to fill in those dates. And based off of the dates that you have in there, it'll calculate all the dates, and we'll show you how to build those calculations for each of the elements, each of the activities of that workflow. So at this point, we're just dealing with two milestone dates, and it does calculation. I've only got 3 activities in this building blocks one, but we'll just go on next. The next thing that this particular one does is it says, okay, who are the people that are involved, who are the party members that are involved with this workflow? Now you might have several different things set up in the workflow. One that's your an email to your lender, an email to title company, all the different things that you would want to email to party members within your workflow can all be represented here. And if the party member is not known, you can simply select them at this point. If you don't know them, maybe for whatever reason you don't know the lender yet, you can leave it blank. Once you do know the lender and you go back to the property and fill in the lender, it will fill in the party members for you within those activities. So whenever you do go to send an email, it will send it to the correct lender. At this point, it's just a very basic one. I just want to get some very basics out there and show you this. So we're just going to click on Done. Now what this does is this starts very quickly to add the activities to the calendar. I can view those activities by coming to the activities list, and it can show you those in a list format. Or you can go in to the calendar side, and this had a previous August date, so I'm going to come over here, and you'll see that the activities are in your calendar as well. Now, some of the basic building blocks of a workflow deals with date calculations, and also it deals with checkboxes and actions. this particular send an email, if I come here and I want to send the thank you email, and I want to choose complete, I want to complete this activity, you'll see that the very first thing that it does is it comes up and says, okay, you can complete this. The action on this is to send an email. I can click on this send an email option here. It does tell me how many times I've run this. If for some reason I needed to send it again or run it again, it would have a count there for us. I could choose to skip and not send the email at all, or close the activity and not complete it. But in this case, I want to go ahead and run this activity. I want to go ahead and click on Run. So it will give you the option right away to either skip the email, send the message as it is to Sam Smith, or I can edit that message. Now, normally you might just send it if you know that it's right. We're using a template email, and we'll cover that in a second as well. We can go in and edit that template if we need to, if there's any editorial changes that you may want to make. There's the basic email itself, the template as it reads. You'll see that it's got some merge fields in it. The current date, the seller's first name, the property address are all in there. And also down here, the current user, which would be me, or in this case, because it's my training database, it'll say Joe Agent. I can go in here and say preview, and it will preview the basic email. It's filled in the date, the person's name, the address, and Joe, as far as my first name. I can then at that point go ahead and send the message if I want. And it goes ahead and sends that. I'm going to close that. I'm not sure why that's coming up. That's interesting. So what we do then is, once we've completed that activity, it's marked off my list. If I go to my activities list, you'll see that it's down here in the completed actions, so we no longer have to worry about it. If we go to our calendar and see any elements in there, any activities, we'll notice that the activity is gone, and any activities that deal with other activities will be bumped up in the list. So because I'm looking at it in a month view, it can only show so many items. So as it goes through, it'll bump up and add additional items to that date. The next activity that I had for this particular building blocks was a checklist. So I'm going to come to this activity, and I'm going to say that I want to complete this as well. And for this, an activity can have a checklist, and in that checklist it can have two different elements. It can have a static element, which is just something that you type in, and we'll discuss how to put this information in there. But this is just saying, hey, did you get the listing contract? Yes, I did. Did you get the seller's disclosure? Yes, I did. If for some reason I did not get my seller's agency agreement information, I can leave that unchecked. If for some reason I didn't need it, I can click on it twice. And what it does is it goes ahead and marks it out. So even though it's in my list, I may not need it in all cases, but it's a checklist item that needs to be completed. So as I go through this process, I can check off any elements of that checklist that are in this checklist option. Now, those are static. The top three are static, meaning they stay the same all the time. The bottom two I added as merge fields, basically. So from my listing for this particular property, 123 South Main Street, or 123 Main Street, I wanted to verify some field values in the database. Do I have the listing price? Now, this is extremely important for people that have these activities set up for your assistant. Instead of requiring them to close the activity, go to the property, go to the listing price field. Did I fill it in? Yeah, I did, or no, I didn't. Fill it in. Come back to the activity just to check mark this off. Yes, we did fill it in. This gives me the ability to double check the value first off, and if it's not right, I can change it, or if there's no value at all, I can add a value to it, and then it adds that value right back into the database. So if you've got an assistant that's doing just basic data entry for you, you can set up workflows to guide them through the data entry elements of your listing, of your contracts, anything that you want to have filled in by your assistant or by you, just to verify that the values are in there. You can certainly put those in there. Likewise, dates. If it's a date field, it'll come up with the calendar, and you're all good. So at this point, I'm going to say that everything is completed. You'll notice at this point then, it'll say there's actions for completed checklist. And it basically says I have all the documents and I can run this. One thing that happened that I didn't actually go through is if this element right here, say seller's agency agreement, if I uncheck this, you'll see now that it says this activity has checklist, and I have an action that's available for an incomplete checklist. So you can have actions, and you can have multiple actions. An action can be placed on either a full checklist where everything is checked off, or if for some reason there are missing elements in that checklist, you can do something totally different. And I'll show you how that sets up. The best part of this is if there is a missing element of some sort in this checklist, I can run an email. There may be 20 different items on this checklist, and maybe 10 of them are missing. You can run an email, and I'm going to go ahead and go back into the edit the message, and I want to do preview. Oh, I sent it to the wrong one. Do not send that. Bad example, guys. Sorry about that. What will happen then is it will go through whenever you go to complete this. It'll use I used the wrong template when I was setting this up. It will go ahead and include any uncompleted activity in an email merge field, so that you can send an email saying, "Dear seller, thank you for listing, but we need the following items from this checklist," and it would list just the missing items that are in your checklist. So I'm going to go ahead and check this off. At the same time that email would have been sent, it would have also added a tag to the activity or to the listing that says that there are missing documents. And now that I've completed all my checklist items, I have all my documents, I could say, well, I have everything, so I want to go ahead and run the action. In this case, it would just remove a tag from my property, so I no longer have those missing documents tags. Now then, what I want to do is I want to show you how we build that. Those are just a couple of the basic building blocks of a workflow. And
Mark, before you get into the building blocks, if everyone can hear me, the reasons we do these, Mark just went over some of the details of a reasonably basic listing workflow, but once you understand the mechanics, you start to see where you can use them everywhere. You can use them for prospecting, lead generation, new listings like you just saw, transactions, your post-closings communications, referrals, rentals. There's a lot of different things that you can do once you understand the mechanics of how everything works. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mark, to share how these building blocks work. We've had specific questions about activities and merging with templates on the actions. We've had questions on how the checklist works. So go ahead and let's get into the details and nitty-gritty of how all this works.
Okay,
together.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'm anticipating all these questions. It's just a matter of getting to everything. So one of the building blocks was the thank you for listing, the email that was sent out. Here in this case, I've created a template. You just click on New Template, and you put in a title. You put in where you want to use this particular template with. Are you going to be sending it as an email to contacts, or used within a property, which is what I'm using it for, or a listing, or am I doing it for a transaction, which is part of the closing process? In this case, I'm doing it within a property. So that allows me to use certain property merge fields, and it's important to use the correct use with field here in order for us to list the appropriate merge fields that you're going to use. Merge fields can be added to any document as you're typing it in. And basically you're just putting the cursor into whatever area that you want that merge field to be placed in, and then you type in double brackets, bracket, bracket. That's the standard key, typically to the right of your P key. It could be on different things. But this will show you all different merge fields that are available. Well, you can certainly pick from this list, but it's much easier just to start typing something that you may want to use. So if I wanted to use the city, I can start typing in city, and it will find anything that has the word city in there. So if I wanted to use the current user city, I can certainly put that in. Now I use the address, and the address field here uses the full address. If I wanted to put in anything about maybe the listing agent, I can type in the word, or listing price, or type in agent, and it'll pull up anything dealing with the seller agent or the buyer's agent. So you can pick from any of these merge fields, and it's just a matter of using the appropriate merge field whenever you're going through the process of creating these templates. Now I do suggest that you think about what is going to be sent out as emails within your workflow first. We had sent out a building workflows document, a PDF file, got like 64 pages of information. On page 7 shows a sample of a workflow worksheet. And there's a blank on the very last page that you can copy and use to kind of think out your workflows. But you can think out in a linear format all the different things that happens and set them up. And anything that deals with sending out an email of some sort, jot down the name and in that workflow and create it first. Create your templates first. That makes it a whole lot easier whenever we go to set up the workflow that we can just pick template. Now, if we go back to the renewal email, let's see, no, at the Mini Documents email, this is the email that should have come up that I had picked the wrong one. In this case, you'll see that there is an activity checklist incomplete. What I did was I just came to this particular field. I want to include some information about checklists. So I start typing in check or checklist, whatever, and it gives you the ability to say, well, I want to include all the checklists that were in that email or in that activity. I want to include only the completed items. You might want to send an email saying, thank you, these are the items that we did get, so anything that's checked off would be in this list. You can include anything that's not completed, which is what I intended to do as far as sending out an email of just those items that we still need to receive from them. And then I can also include a merge field that exclude anything that is excluded, where it used the circle slash, meaning it was not needed or not available. So in this particular case, we wanted to use the incomplete checklist. So I just pick it from my list. I can scroll down here at the bottom and click on Save, and it will save then that template. Any of those merge fields can be used in a template, and it's very powerful. Now, I'm going to go back to the workflow area. Up at the top, we click on Workflows, and I want to click on the building blocks on the left that loads this information on the right. The very top of this, and I'm going to use, just for our purposes here, use this as a quick example, and then we're going to start a brand new one from scratch just to show you what we're doing. But I want to show you, going back to what we used first off, we had, when we first started the workflow, it had the title, and that's where this comes from. We just chose building blocks, and then we clicked on Next. The next thing that it came up is it listed all the activities, and all those activities, which there were only 3 of them, they're listed in this list. We can use the little chevron up or down to collapse or show the activities in the list. Each of these activities can be part of any particular group. Now, all of these are actually part of the general group, but there might be one which I want to add a new item to this, and we're going to call it septic, because we might want to do some additional stuff based off of needing septic information. I'm going to put in septic disclosure. I know that that's really not exactly what we want to do, but we're going to put that in as a title. And over here on the right where it says General right now, I want to assign this to Septic. Now, this particular activity, had we unchecked the Septic, this particular activity would be excluded from my workflow list. Just wanted to show how that works. I might send this particular thing again to the seller. I can come here, party members. You can, again, type in any kind of search name or whatever, and it'll pull up the list. Whenever you're dealing with emails that need to go out or phone calls that you need to make, you may need to know who is it that I'm going to be making that phone call to, or who is it that I'm going to send the email to. And that's a party member. A party member is going to be the people that are involved in that transaction or that property listing. And you can pick the appropriate people that go along with it. If you choose none, then all of the activities will be assigned to whoever the default is. Just because it has none in here doesn't mean that it won't select somebody. It will just select the default value whenever you first start this. And that was a question that we had on one of our users that got kind of lost. They had kept choosing the prompt, and it kept coming up and up and up, prompting for a contact. And you really don't want to prompt each time. You just want to use one default person, and the none option will be there. But if I want to send it to the seller, maybe I also want to send this to the seller agent as well. I can have multiple people that I send this email to. I can send it to the lender. I can send it to the title company. Whoever this particular document or email needs to be done, or if it's a phone call, who are the people I need to call? It lets you assign those at one time. And then the scheduling piece is, when do I want to do this? And I want to compute this. Maybe I want to say I want to make sure I have my septic disclosure 2 days after list date. So just some basic building blocks of information there. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Add. Now I'm going to go back to the very first activity in this list, which we had started, which was the send a thank you email. I'm going to edit that one. And what you will see is the same type of information that I was just showing, the title, who it's assigned to. Now, if you've got a team of users, you may have yourself and a couple assistants or another agent or buyer's agent. You can put your different users in the user section of setup, and then those users will be listed here so you can pick from. So if this email really, if this is something that I want Annie to send out, Annie assistant, then I can assign it to Annie and it'll show up on her calendar on the day that it's due. If I want it to show up on my list, I would put it on Joe Agent and it would show up on mine. Again, picking out who are the party members that are involved with this particular email, who's going to get the email. I pick a seller on this. And when does it get sent out? In this case, I want to do it 1 day after the listing date. If you have multiple activities, which is this one right here is 1 day after the listing date as well, you'll also probably want to utilize this numbering. This is the order field, and it allows you to order if certain things need to come before others. This would be order number 1 or item number 1. This is item number 2. They both calculate to the same day, but they need to be done in a particular order. You'd want to use that number field. If it doesn't matter, they can all be 1. It doesn't really matter at that point. But just if something needs to be done before another, you can use the order field. In this particular case, I'm sending an email, and I've created the email action. If I click on this action down here, now you can create more than one action. But this particular email just has one email that's sending out, and it's a the send message is selected. I'm going to send an email message, and I want to send it the thank you for listing email. I can take whatever email templates that I've got from my list that are assigned to properties. If I wanted to, instead of sending an email, I could send this as a Facebook message. I could send this as a SMS text. I could send this as a tweet. There's lots of different capabilities for sending out messages. Most of the time it's going to be email, and you pick the email and then pick the email template that you want to send out. Now an action.
And I don't want to interrupt you, Mark, just to want to make a quick point on why you would send Facebook messages or SMS messages. So let's say you created a workflow to reach out to someone on their birthday. It may be more appropriate to send a Facebook message or a text message. So there's all kinds of different templates you can create, and the application, it just really depends on the application of that particular workflow and what type of message you want to send.
Exactly, exactly. Now, an action, which is listed here, there's really 3 parts to an action. The sending of the message, which is what we were just describing, but we've also got the ability to add or remove tags. So one action that I've got here, whenever I send this email, I wanted to add the tag, if it's not already on there, of new listing. So that 123 Main Street will have a tag of new listing assigned to it. And I also have the ability to to add other workflows. If I wanted to launch another workflow from an action, that's a possibility too. You may want to do that for branching to other workflows based off of some need, and we can cover that at a later time. But basically, we're just setting up the email and setting up that we want to add a tag to on this particular activity. Now, the second activity that we were using was the check for missing documents, and this one is particularly important because this is where we set up those static and those merge fields. Now, just like we set up the merge fields in the template with the double bracket, we do the same thing in a checklist. So you can either type in basic information. Maybe I want to add another checklist item of added to MLS. Okay, type it in, and it puts it into my list. And I can click and drag these wherever I want, or I can remove them using the X. If I decide that I don't want some particular item, I can remove it. So you can add static ones. If you want to use the merge fields, again, just use the double bracket. And maybe we want to make sure that we've got the alarm code for whatever reason. It got an alarm. So that way, whenever we're doing our listing, we're filling in fields of information. If for some reason we didn't fill in the alarm code, but this activity comes up due for maybe my assistant, the assistant says, oh, I need the alarm code, and they can fill it in right from that checklist item of that activity without having to go back to the listing, go back to the property details, finding that field, filling in the value. It saves like 5 or 6 clicks, and could save you a minute or two just trying to find the fields. So you do it in one spot, and you're good to go. Now, because this activity has a checklist, you'll see that I've got actions over here. This top action is dealing with missing documents. This was the missing documents piece for this, and I should have chosen, so thank you for listening, I should have chosen the missing documents email to go out, and so next time I go to send this, it'll actually work. So if for some reason any of these items are unchecked, meaning not that they're still blank, not if you check them off or you mark them off as not needed, the not needed ones are still considered completed. But if you've got any checklist items that are still blank, it'll give you the option down here to include this in an incomplete checklist, meaning if my checklist is incomplete, this particular action will be available. If I have this checkbox unchecked, it'll only be available, this action would only be available if everything is checked, and that's the case for the other action that I have on here. In this particular case, because it's for an incomplete checklist, I would send the missing documents email. I'm also going to tag that property with a tag of missing documents. So at any point, I can pull up from my dashboard or from my listings area, I can pull up any listings that are missing documents very quickly and easily, and then do whatever needs to be done based off of missing some documents. I could also start that workflow. If my checklist is incomplete, I can also reschedule it after so many days. I can say, well, no, we didn't complete it today. It's really not complete, but I've checked off the things that I needed to check off, and I've sent my email. So I'm going to give them 7 days to send me my agency agreement, my seller agency agreement, or whatever it is that's missing. If there's multiple things, I'm giving them 7 days to do that. So what this will do is it'll basically reschedule this item 7 days out, so that it'll remind you again, do you have everything? And anything that you previously checked off will remain checked off, and anything that's incomplete, you'll have the opportunity to complete those. So once I save that, now the other action that's in here is the have all documents. That is the action that I want to take if it is a completed checklist, meaning we're not using the incomplete option. And in this case, the only thing I'm doing, I'm not sending an email, I'm not starting workflow, all I'm doing is removing that missing documents tag. So whenever we found out that we were missing documents, it added that tag. Whenever I run this action, it will remove that tag because I have all my documents. Cool? And you may want to add other actions, either complete or incomplete. You don't have to just have one or two. You can have other options in here as well. There may be certain cases where There are times when you want to send it as an email. There may be times when you want to send it as a text. It's the same activity, but you may want to send it differently based off of some condition. And you can add another action, and it would give both of those actions as a choice whenever you go to complete the activity, so you can choose which one you want, and that gives you that branching capability. Yes.
I have a quick question, Mark, on actions when you are sending an email, or regardless of what kind of message it is. What does it mean to send automatically? That's a question from Krista.
Okay. What can happen is whenever you go to complete this and choose run, it just automatically runs it. Now, the team is finishing up, or not finishing up, they're making some changes that will allow you to assign times and dates. Well, actually, we already have times and dates on activities, but within the settings area, you'll be able to set up so that activities with actions that do not have checklists, it would be a case where it's basically, we know it's either complete or not complete, or it's an email that we want to send automatically at a certain time of the day, or that you can pre-assign, or a certain time of the day that this activity is assigned, it can automatically send out that email for you. So you don't even have to be in the office to be able to send it. Now, right now, if you have that checkbox checked, there was one, when I chose run, it came up and said, do you want to skip, do you want to preview the email, or edit it, or send it or edit it? It would not ask you that at all if this is checked. It just goes ahead and sends it.
Got it. Thank you very much. So that's a coming feature here shortly.
The automatic sending from an activity is already there, but the coming feature will be in the settings area, being able to either turn on or turn off that feature. Once you turn it on, anything that's got a time and date that doesn't have a checklist, but you want to send out an email, it'll send it automatically for you on any given time and date.
Cool. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we've covered checklists, we've covered some actions, we covered scheduling, picking the width, and who's doing the assignments. The types here, this is just basic classifying of a type. Is it an appointment? Is it a call? Is it an email? Some kind of follow-up or lunch? Am I in meetings? Is it an SMS text message or a to-do? Or am I traveling or something? These are some basic typing for the activity. You can also assign the colors. These would be really helpful if it's dealing with like the expiration date. I'm going to go ahead and, since I didn't make a change to that, I'm going to come down here and say we've got this expire.
I have another question while you're finding that. Okay. Just a quick question while you're finding that. It's really important, as you know, for agents to be able to have a record of all the communications they've sent. So if there is automatic emails going out, or if they're running activities that have actions assigned to where they're sending out an email, how does a user track what has been sent out and be able to see the email that has been, the communications that are being sent? Sure.
Off of your dashboard right now, you can go to that dashboard and you can see your outgoing emails, but whenever you're sending it from a property or to a person, you can go to that person and it'll be on their radar. So you'll actually see a preview of what you sent to that person.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Continue.
No problem. Anything that's really important, like expiration reminder, you may want to colorize it. I would suggest like a red color or whatever, so that whenever you see these, they'll really stand out. Because you've got workflows, and if you're a busy agent, you've got lots of transactions going, you've got lots of listings going, your calendars are a mess. I've seen them. And being able to identify the really important things, you can certainly set it as a color, but you can also set it as either high, medium, or low, or none activity. So what happens then is whenever these get assigned, you'll see, and I'm not going to go to it right now, but you'll see a star. It'll either have a star that's fully colored in, or a star with a half color is medium, or a star with that's empty is low, and then there's also a no star, which is none. So it gives you the kind of a view of how important is that particular activity within your calendar. You can set reminders, so many hours or days ahead of time, and it would come up as a pop-up or an email. You can set those up. And then if there's anything that dealing with repeats, maybe you want to do something weekly, you can set up a weekly repeat as well. So those are some of the basic parts of that. I'm going to go and click on update again as I change the color on that. So we've basically did the workflow name description stuff at the top here, and then we started adding the activities to our list. In this particular case, all the activities are in a linear format. There may be something like, okay, the septic disclosure. This may be an activity that actually let me do a different one. And it really doesn't necessarily go with this because the listing is more geared for, or it's more geared for a listing than a transaction. But maybe we want to send update email. Actually, we will this way. Email to seller. And I do want to do it. Actually, let's see what other. Actually, let's do a photographer. Okay, so I'm gonna change this here. Send email to photographer. Okay, so we're going to send an email to the photographer 2 days after the list date. And I don't have the email right now, so I'm not going to actually do the action. But what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and create this, just say that it's an email, and I want to add it. Now, here's the deal. There are some activities that you may want to be based off of the completion of other activities. If I don't send this email to the photographer, if for some reason I don't need to send this email to the photographer, I skip it or I delete it or whatever, I may or may not want to send the next email, which may be what is photo status. Okay, so maybe for some reason I want to send another email to my photographer that says, hey, what's the status? Where am I at? Maybe you've not heard back in the customary 7 days or whatever time frame that you've assigned to them, and you're going to do a follow-up email. Well, what you can do is say, I want to give them 5 days after the completion. I'll choose completion date, and then I can come down here and say of sending email to photographer. So this activity won't be given a date until I've completed the first email. So if I complete it today, it would create a follow-up activity and assign it that activity date 5 days out. If I hold on that email for a day or 2 or 3, maybe even 5 days out, once I complete it on the 5th day, we wouldn't want this activity, the follow-up status, to be 5 days after the listing day, because that would have been the same day that we sent it out on. In this case, we want to have it 5 days out from the date that I completed my sending out of my first email. So any activity can not only be based off of a specific date, but it can be based off of the completion of another activity within the same workflow. And that's really powerful. As far as the schedule option, now you can choose to not give it a date at all, and that would be just a checklist item. As soon as you start the workflow, it's going to show up as a checklist, something that you need to do. It doesn't necessarily base anything off of any kind of date, listing or otherwise. You can specify certain actions to be based off of a specific date. And some people get confused on this one. This is not an actual day of the date within the calendar. This would be used like maybe I want to do this on April 1st of every year. So instead of specifying this as a particular date, I'm choosing, or a particular year, it's just choosing a given day. So maybe I want to send an email out to everybody on December 31st or even January 1st. Now, January 1st of every year, I want to send this out. Now, it's going to send it out January 1st this year, but it will, because it's set up as a specific date, it would also go out on any January 1st, not just for that particular year. That way you can use it as a template and it continue to go and go. In this case, I'm just going to use it as 5 days after. So whenever we look at this list now, you'll see that I've got certain things that are based off of the listing date. I've got one thing that says 5 days before my expiration date, and then I've got 5 days after the completion date, and that completion date is based off of my sending of the photographer. So some really powerful building blocks that you can use. The document, if you did not get our document, let us know. We can send that to you. The document takes you step by step through creating a new listing agreement, and I didn't include it in this particular database, but it's similar to this, where you create a title, you create this for use with properties, and then you start adding in all your activities, and it takes you step by step through how to do this. And then not only adding basic information, but also going back and extending information into each of those so that you can add additional features to an item once you've got it created. And if you will go through the document one time, it should make sense. If it doesn't, let us know. There is a training on our YouTube channel that takes you step by step through creating what we just did. I mean, it takes you through the process of creating templates, creating the workflow, basic information, then each of the activities in there. So once you've got this set up, every time you go to your dashboard and go to a particular property, I can go through any particular property itself and start a workflow and use it over and over again. So every time I start a new listing, I can start the new listing workflow, and it gives me consistent, accurate workflow process that's going to help you, number one, be on time with your listing stuff. It's going to allow you to be consistent with all your buyers and your sellers doing things. And ultimately, being consistent is the thing that's going to help them trust you and refer people to you, because if they know that their process went through flawlessly, or you handled, because of the workflow, you might have, because we didn't really cover it, there may be things that you know during the closing process. Well, one of my actions may be buyer didn't disclose all my information, all his loan information, or all of his debts, so he doesn't have good credit. So you might have an action for bad credit issues. So instead of choosing action A, which would take you through the normal process, you might go action B, which would take you through the bad credit area, so that you can deal with those things. So by knowing ahead of time what you need to do, because you guys are professionals, you know what you need to do in cases where things like this crop up, you can set up the workflow to remind you to do those things so that every time you do it, you don't forget it. There may be obscure things that you don't happen to do very often, but when they do happen, you want to make sure you get them accurate. So,
Mark, I have a question on checklists. And we get it on occasion. You know, checklists are really one of the unique things to Revolve. Most other workflow systems out there, like with Top Reducer or Wise Agent or really anything, is just a series of tasks. But on a checklist, can the items be ordered? Is there a way to reset the order of items that you build?
Yes, whenever you're building the workflow itself. Let me go back to the building blocks, and let's go here to the checklist missing documents. All you have to do is, once you got them typed in, any item here in the list, you can just simply click on it and then drag it to where you want it in the list. So if I wanted to move my alarm code up, I just move it up to the top.
Cool.
So you can order them however you like to see them at this point.
All right, that question was from Melanie. I hope that answers your question, Melanie. All right, continue. Sorry about that.
That's fine. I mean, that's pretty much, yeah, those are the building blocks of a workflow. And those are the things, it's a matter of knowing your tools knowing what you have available, and then each activity just uses one or more of those building blocks. Calculating who's going to be the activity done with, when is it going to be done, are there checklist items, and are there actions that go along with those. And the action is what's so powerful, because you have multiple capabilities of doing things, adding and removing tags, starting other workflows, and you may come to the very last item on your checklist or on your workflow at the very bottom. Maybe this is a contract to close workflow, and the very last item might be, after you've closed the property, maybe you want to start the post-closing workflow, so that you contact them yearly, or you contact them every 6 months with some kind of a piece, or maybe you start them on your monthly newsletter workflow. We really don't like to be dripped on, but if you're giving them good quality information on a daily or on a monthly basis or quarterly, people value good information, and then whenever they choose to list again, or they want to buy property, they're going to come to you. Or if somebody says, hey, do you know a good agent, because you kept up with that person, and you had a good transaction through them because you used your workflow to make it a smooth transaction, they're going to remember that, and they're going to refer more business to you. And that's really the key to this, is building those relationships so that you get more business.
Perfect. Any other items to go through, Mark? The call's been on an hour. I don't want to overload anyone. We may want to share some for another call, because there are a lot of cool things that we can do to set automatic workflows for bringing in new leads, like there's Zapier with a Zillow connection. So I think that we're going to save that for another call.
Yeah, we've got some really powerful tools, guys. One of the things that we've added to Realvolve, which several systems have, but we've really keyed it in to use the Zaps within Zapier. It can bring information. If you add a contact to your database, it can automatically send it to MailChimp or other places. You can have emails that come in, automatically parse and fill in information. But whenever it does those Zaps, it can also start workflows, which is really cool. So you may have a lead generation website that, once they fill in their requests of information that they want to know about you or your services, or they want to know about properties, whatever, they fill in the form. You may have that form going to MailChimp. Well, it goes to MailChimp, and then you can set up a Zap to take that data from MailChimp and put it into Realvolve at the same time. Or if it gets sent as an email to you, you can parse that email, have it automatically fill into Realvolve, and at the very same time automatically start a lead generation workflow. So the very first thing that comes in not only has the contact been added to your database, but it also tells you that you've got you need to make a phone call, and you make a phone call, or it could automatically send out the email. There's unlimited possibilities there to being able to use within a Zap and the capabilities there. So cool stuff.
Okay, wonderful. I am going to wrap up answering any questions, and thank you all for joining us. We did record this, and we will be sharing it with you later on today when the video is ready. So feel free to email Mark and I direct. I'm at dave@realvolve.com, and Mark is mark@realvolve.com. Very, very easy. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to continue to answer these questions. If we didn't get to yours and we tried to get to everybody, then we will email you direct. Thank you very much. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Have a great day, guys.